talk more about later when we talk about events. But now he's going to talk about how he's going to do the process of making a transition of keeping us mobile and adding in possibly indoor. Thank you, John.
All right, so obviously I do the mobile stuff, that was sports inflatables, all the paintball stuff. But one of the things that I found is there's just a cap on the number of events you can do in a weekend. If you're an engineering nerd, so I grab a spreadsheet, pull out maybe total events you can do in a weekend because you've got drive time to get to an event, you've got setup time, you've got down, you've got to go to the next event. There is some cap. Now that's true for an indoor event as well, right? There is some cap of the total number of indoor things you can do in a weekend or a week, but it's way higher than what I can do on the mobile side. So when I start running the numbers of what I can do from revenue perspectives for an indoor event, obviously I see just from running spreadsheet numbers, and this is not just pure laser tech, there's a multi-million-dollar opportunity for an indoor laser tech. So quickly I jumped on working a business plan, working some business numbers and stuff on what I can go do, just model-wise on the revenue. But then I had to go find a building, and that's probably the most trivial statement to make, but how complicated it totally is. And you guys who look for buildings and got new building stuff understand this. But in the Houston area, there's it's probably no different than the big cities. There's a lot of empty storefronts, and I've done a lot of different things trying to get deals with these guys, and I've been this close on several different buildings, and I'm again closer than I've ever been before in the building I'm looking at right now. But there's been a whole lot of learning experiences that I think I've gained on just where I've gotten to now that hopefully I can pass on to you guys. First of all, as you're looking for space, my vision was a warehouse. Let me go find a really large, wide open space that gave me plenty of flexibility and freedom to do an indoor battlefield that I visioned to be more like, for you, those of you who've ever been someplace that you can go gambling, like the Venetian in Las Vegas. The indoor upstairs place that had the Italian village, that had the old, I kind of saw that as a big bombed out kind of a village. Let's go to an indoor place that looks similar to that. So that was kind of the premises of what I had put down in my concept of what I wanted to go build. So I needed some space that had a tall enough ceiling to kind of pull some of this stuff off, and then of course a wide enough space to do I wanted a pretty large battlefield. As I started going and talking to landlords and seeing signs that said for lease on the front of buildings and called up probably hundreds of real estate agents and left messages and talked about here's what my vision is, and either no return calls or we'll get back to you kind of a concept is generally what you get out of real estate agents. I quickly realized that real estate agents aren't the people you want to talk to, especially over the phone. Maybe in person, but not over the phone because they're not laser tech people. I mean, they're probably not gamers. They're probably not somebody who's experienced the passion of the business that you're in. And so it's going to be very hard, particularly over the phone, to get them to understand the actual total revenue that we're talking about in these buildings. So unfortunately, I learned that quite a few hard way. I went to old Baby Depots, old Toys R Us's, grocery stores, all kinds of businesses that are just kind of crawling through and we're leaving these wide open spaces. And of course, I went to a lot of warehouses, and these warehouses were wide open, empty spaces. But I found quickly that there were a couple of things that were wrong with all the spaces. One was, you go to a warehouse, warehouses are designed with very large footprints, but very small parking lots. We've already kind of stated with a couple of presentations that parking spaces is very important. And I've learned that from talking to quite a few field owners out there who both have both indoor and outdoor, that you do have to have enough parking spaces. You're tricking yourself if you think you're going to get some low rent and you don't have enough places for those guys to park. So warehouse after warehouse of great square footage price, perfect spot for it, middle of downtown Houston, and then 30 parallel parking spaces right next to a street light, and that was all they would have for it. And it just you had to walk away. As great of a sweet of a deal it was. I go to an old Kroger, Albertsons, name your local grocery store who's kind of falling on hard times these days. Go into these places and great parking lots, big parking lots on the outside. And you go inside and it's just a total dump. I mean, major dump. This is the place that used to have the old freezers and delis and all these little things that had broken and leaked and whatever the case was. It was just disaster areas after disaster area that I saw. And it was no way that with the amount of money that I had to go invest in that kind of stuff that I could turn that around. So I have been looking for a location probably solidly for about maybe a year, probably on and off. Before that, just the concept was in my head. I wanted to go do it. I wanted to get accomplished. I knew it was a long-term goal of the business. And we can talk about how you set your goals in business probably later today, but I knew it was that goal that had to be set. I got a call from a real estate agent who had a facility that was an ex-laser tag facility, an ex-indoor laser tag facility, and wanted to know if I was interested. And I thought, okay, I'll come by and take a look at it. Sounds like an interesting idea. I already know that an original indoor location is not what I wanted. That's not what I had envisioned for what this tactical laser tag thing that we do for a living is. But let me go look at the space. I go look at the space, and it's an indoor putt-putt golf, which is the absolute worst revenue per square foot that you can put inside of a building. It was in the front half of the building. And in the back half was an indoor laser tag arena that was probably the worst design. I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I can completely understand why this guy went out of business. It's single points of access to the balcony so that you can get up and shoot. There's no two ways down, and if you guys have ever played indoor, you don't do a single point of access because that's your choke point, and that's where you always wind up playing with against each other. You have to have at least 2 spots. This guy had 1, and it was a nice bird's nest that was up there really big. But you could just see the trappings that would happen in this facility and stuff. And so I looked at the space and I said, no, it's not really for me. I mean, I could rip all of this stuff out and kind of come in and do something completely different, but this is not the amount of square footage that I was really looking for. I think the total space was around 14,000, and that's, and he's probably thinking that actually would work. But, you know, I had these huge visions. So I thought, well, that's kind of not for me. And he said, well, let's go look at this space next door. I said, okay. Well, you know, I don't know what he had in mind, but we went into the building, the same building. This is actually an old grocery store, so it's already been kind of divided up because it's been used for multiple things over time. In the building next door was a place called Velocity, which is a sports complex. They train high school football athletes, track athletes, soccer athletes, things like that. So inside this building next door, completely empty, completely vacant, was a full-scale model of a football field with the turf down, a track, and a basketball court in this just wide open space. And then offices going down, which, you know, I'm already envisioning party rooms, 2 loading docks in the back. I'm already envisioning I can run my mobile business back there. So I quickly walked into the space, and puzzles are starting to get, you know, pieced together. The thing is starting to look like this could work. And I looked at the guy and said, no, this is not going to work. But I knew this thing could really work when I give him any ammo for the negotiations later on down the line. But this space was really, really perfect. It was in a really good part of town, high traffic area, gigantic parking lot. And so I told him, well, maybe we can figure out something else. And this was probably September of last year that this was kind of falling into place. So now it's February-ish, and I still had to close the deal in this building. So let me kind of walk you through the timeline of how getting into a building is kind of a pain in the ass. First of all, I didn't have a big pile of cash. And I know all of you have piles of cash buried in your backyard, but I didn't. And what I found was I needed to go do an SBA loan, I thought. And so I went through all the time and effort it does to get an SBA loan. I had a very, very nice business plan, very nice 3-year projections. I met with the bankers, multiple bankers, had them all interested in not only funding my loan, but having their kid's birthday party with us. But what I found was they weren't in charge. There was an underwriter who was hidden in the back who really made all the decisions. They weren't allowed to come to the front room and talk to you. So they didn't come in and drink the Kool-Aid. But what I found was these guys in the front office thought, brilliant idea, beautiful, it actually really works. And then you get to the back office and they would say, no, you have to have 25% down, 30% down, whatever bank you go to, it's always different. And then you go find out that an SBA loan is a government-backed loan where the government backs 75% of the loan. Unless Obama has something to do with it. Sometimes he spent it up to 95%, whichever, you know, whatever was going on at the time. Reality-wise, is the bank shouldn't ask for any more than 25% because that actually covers 100% of their risk if they do. But banks don't care. And the statement that I got from the bank was specifically, if I give you this money and I get audited, what is the auditor going to say to me because I took this risk? I'm thinking, you were brilliant. I don't know what but that's the kind of thing you're going to get out of banks. The banks just really aren't going to give you money, and that was kind of the hardest lesson.